What's up guys, I'm Lee Morse with Fstoppers.com, and in front of me here is the audio setup that we have built for every single one of our desktop computers. I think this is the absolute best sound for the money that you could possibly build. In this video, I'm going to make 3 different setups. One's gonna be about $100, one's going to be right around $200. This setup here costs $300 to $350, and basically you're going to be able to get a really high quality audio setup for your office no matter what your budget is. You can check out all of the links to all of the equipment that we're gonna talk about in the description below. But before I tell you what I have right in front of me here, let me lay out all of the gear that we're going to be talking about in this video. So if you subscribe to our YouTube channel, you know that we're all about photography, but we do lots of video these days. We are constantly editing video in Adobe Premiere. We want to have good quality sound. And even if we're editing pictures in Photoshop, we're usually listening to music or a movie. And again, we want really nice, high quality sound for that as well. Now, there are tons of options when it comes to powered speakers. You could go on Amazon right now or B&H and type in computer speakers, and about 1,000 different options are going to come up. I'm going to be ignoring these sound in a box systems that you can buy and just plug in, because I think although they may be a little bit more convenient and they're certainly going to be smaller, we're going to be able to get much higher quality sound for a much lower price by doing it ourselves. Let's first start with the speakers themselves. And if you have a good eye, you might notice that we are big fans of Polk speakers here. And these 3 speakers on the end are Polk speakers. The 2 in the middle are actually the speakers that we have for each of the different desktop computers that we have set up in this office. Now, before I made this video, I wanted to go on Amazon and check out the reviews and make sure there weren't any other speakers less than $100 that people said sounded absolutely amazing. And there was one pair of speakers that had incredible reviews. And over here on my far left is the Mica MB42 bookshelf speakers. These things cost $56 and they had like 4.5-star reviews. So I thought, you know, before I can say I'm really happy with these Polk speakers, let me buy a slightly cheaper option and compare them. Well, I have to say, I plugged them in, and without even doing a side-by-side comparison, I could tell that those speakers absolutely sucked. They sounded flat, they were distorting in the bass, they didn't have crisp, clear highs at all. It almost sounded like a children's toy speaker to me. And so when I put them side by side with the other speakers, there was absolutely no competition at all there. So I'm going to suggest that you go ahead and just forget the Micas. I've never even heard of that brand before. I will be shipping them back to Amazon. So now let's talk about our go-to speakers that we have here in the middle. The first one here is the Polk T15 bookshelf speaker. They are normally $99, but they are currently $70 as of today when we are recording this video. I think I may have also seen them go down to $50 before as well. These speakers are absolutely incredible for the price, and these speakers are actually what I have in my office right now. Next over here is the Polk TSI 100 bookshelf speakers. These speakers cost $150, and as of today on Amazon, they are $129. I have seen these speakers go as low as $100 before. But when I did a side-by-side comparison with these and the TSI 100s, there was a significant difference. There's definitely a little bit better bass in the 100s. There's also a $60 difference. It's almost double the price to upgrade to the TSI 100 speakers. And so you're going to have to ask yourself, is it worth spending that extra money? Now, before I can recommend exactly which speaker you should buy, we're gonna have to get into amplifiers and subs and stuff like that. But before we do that, let me just throw in this one other speaker here. This is the Polk RTI A3 bookshelf speaker. As you can see, it's a little bit heftier of a speaker. This is actually what Patrick uses up in his music room in his house. And it's significantly more money. Its retail price is $399. And it's currently on sale right now on Amazon for $281, which is a pretty good price for what you get here. And I was really excited to compare these 2 speakers here, because you start getting to a point of diminishing returns. You start doubling the money that you're putting into sound, but you're not actually getting twice as good of sound. And so we plugged both of these speakers into the same amp, and we just went back and forth, A, B, A, B. And man, it's very difficult for me to explain the difference in sound. I can't say like, oh, this one has so much more bass than this one. It wasn't that clear, but it almost sounded like multiple speakers were plugged in when this one speaker was playing compared to this speaker. It just sounded so much more full and bright and airy, and it seemed like the sound was coming from a larger area of the room. And I don't think I would ever really be able to distinguish the sound difference if I had to walk from room to hear multiple setups. But if you can hear them side by side and you can click one on and then the other on, it is pretty shocking how different these speakers can sound. So obviously this is the nicest speaker that we tested with this small comparison that we have here. It's also the largest speaker. It's also the most beautiful speaker. If money is no object, I'm gonna go ahead and say this is a fantastic speaker to put on your computer desk. But for the list that I'm going to make at the end of this video, I think this might be a little bit overkill, and you're getting to a point of diminishing returns where you're spending double the money, but it's not double the sound quality. So now let's talk about amplifiers. None of these speakers are powered, meaning that you're going to have some sort of electronic system that's going to push these speakers, and it's going to sit in between your computer and the speakers themselves. When it comes to surround sound versus stereo sound, I am personally a fan of stereo sound. I do not like surround sound. I don't like surround sound even when I'm watching movies in my house. I just have a really nice stereo setup. If you're editing in surround sound, sure, get surround sound. If you're a gamer and you want to be able to hear things behind you, you may have to have some fancy sound card, and you can get a 5.1 system there as well. But for me personally, I think stereo is the way to go, and so my amplifiers are stereo amplifiers. This amplifier here is the Sony STRDH130. It is a 2-channel, 130 watt per channel amplifier, and this is one of the best deals in amplifiers that we have ever found. This entire amplifier system is normally $150, but you can get it almost anywhere at any time for less than $100, and that's absolutely incredible for what you get here. It is a 2-channel amplifier, which means it can push a right and a left channel, but it has an A and a B channel as well. So if you have speakers on your desk, you can set those as A, and then let's say you have a studio where you want to have additional speakers, you could set those to B, and then by just toggling on A, B, or A and B, you could have music coming out of the speakers just in your office, the speakers just in your studio, or both at the exact same time. Now, the only downside that I have with this Sony receiver is that it's just so big, and I personally have a giant desk, so it's not a problem for me. But you know, if you live in a small apartment or something and you don't have a ton of space, putting something like this on your desk or even under your desk may not be the best option. So I went back online in search of a much smaller amplifier that's going to fit more easily on an average size computer desk. The first thing I found was the Leppy LP2020A. This is a 20 watt amplifier, and then I found another one that had similar specs. This is the Onyu ZYDZ040. And they are significantly underpowered compared to the 130 watt per channel Sony, but these are 20 watt per channel, and I read a bunch of reviews and people said, you know, these things are great, and I think both of these cost less than $30. I think this one was only $21 on Amazon, so it was an absolutely incredible price. I plugged both of them in, and I got very similar sound quality out of both of these, and it sounded pretty good, even at, you know, fairly high volume. And I think for most people, they might be totally satisfied with something like this. It sounded great to me until I did the side-by-side comparison with the Onyu and the Sony receiver. It just sounded so much better to everybody in the office out of the Sony receiver. And obviously this thing cost 4 times as much money, but I would say you're getting so much more than 4 times the quality. You're getting so many more options for input on the back. You're getting so many more options to push different types of speakers and stuff when you're talking about the output of this thing, and so much more power that my suggestion would be to stick with the Sony if you have enough space. Now, if you're the type of person who has plenty of money to spend on audio, but you just don't have the room, there are options in between both of these. You can get amplifiers that are small, that have much more power and are higher quality. I went online and I found a few that have really great reviews. You could check out the FX Audio D802 2x80 watt. This has incredible reviews on Amazon.com. Also check out the Topping TP22 TK2050. This is only 30 watts per channel, but everyone online absolutely loves this thing as well. I haven't tested either of these amplifiers, but I think they are a great option if you need high quality sound in a much smaller package. So now you have a pretty decent idea of what we're working with when it comes to speakers. You also have a pretty decent idea of the different amplifier options that we have as well. It's now time to talk about subwoofers. If you look at the size of these little bookshelf speakers, it's pretty obvious to see that we're not going to get sufficient bass with these things. And I know some people would say, I don't listen to hip hop, I don't like booming noise. The advantage of a subwoofer is not that you can play music really loud, it's that you're sending the certain frequencies that these little bookshelf speakers can't even handle. You're pushing that to a speaker that's sized big enough to actually reproduce that sound. So when you pair a high quality subwoofer with one of these small bookshelf speakers, you are going to be shocked by how high quality this sound is. So if you've ever built a car stereo, you know that you buy the subwoofer, the box, and the amp completely separately. But if you're trying to buy a reasonably priced home audio system, you're going to want a powered subwoofer. That means that you're going to plug the subwoofer into the wall. It has its own amp built inside the case, and you're not going to have to worry about buying another amplifier. I've used a ton of different subwoofers over the years. I've used so many different brands. I've used different sizes, 8, 10, 12 inch. And for the money, I think the very best value when it comes to powered subwoofers is the Polk Audio PSW 10-inch subwoofer. This is going to change the quality of your audio probably more than any other thing that I have here on this table. So now that I've talked about all of the different components here, let me clear this table off and I'm going to make 3 different audio setups based on each budget that you might be in, $100, $200, and $300, and then you can decide which audio setup is right for you. All right, so this is the first setup I would recommend if you're trying to build an audio setup for your computer that's less than $100. Now, I did notice that this is actually a slightly older version of a Polk speaker that doesn't actually exist anymore. The current T15, if you look up the picture, does look slightly different. But that is my best option if you're trying to stay below $100 because that speaker is only $70. To push this speaker, I would recommend the On-U amplifier. Like I said, it's not going to be as good as the high-end Sony amplifier, but if you're not comparing them side by side, maybe you will never notice the difference. It comes with its own power supply here. The only other 2 things you're going to need is speaker wire, and then you're going to need something to connect the computer to the amp itself. What I bought was a headphone to RCA cable. You can just plug this directly in the back of the computer or into the headphone slot, and then plug this into the input jack on the back of this amp. All in all, this comes out to right under $100, maybe a little over $100 if you have to buy the speaker wire as well, but we are right about $100, and that's really incredible sound for the price. Now let's talk about the $200 setup. I'm gonna start with the Sony amplifier, which is $100. If we move up in speaker quality to the TSI 100, like I said, it is currently selling for $120. But every few months it does seem to drop to $100. Again, we're gonna have to buy the exact same wires. So I bought the headphone jack to the RCA jack to plug the computer into the amplifier itself. And then we of course need speaker wire as well to run from the amp to the speaker. If you don't already own these 2 wires, you are going to spend, I don't know, 10 or 20 bucks more. But we are staying right around $200 with this setup, and when you compare that to other all-in-one $200 systems that you can buy online right now, there's really gonna be no comparison at all. So for the final setup here, let me show you what we have set up for each one of our desktop computers here at the office. I think this is the absolute best quality sound you can get for the money. We have the exact same receiver here. This is the Sony receiver. This is the Polk TSI 100 bookshelf speaker. And now what we've added is the PSW10 10-inch powered subwoofer by Polk as well. And all of this together as it stands right now is right around $350, and I am convinced you will never get a better audio system for less than $400 than I have right here. Now, I know the #1 comment down here below this video is gonna be, oh my gosh, what an ad, Polk paid you. And as always, my answer is, Polk has no clue what Fstoppers is. We're a photography website. Polk would have no reason to pay us to do a video like this. And when it comes to speakers and sound quality, I own a lot of other speakers that I think sound much better than this. My home speakers are massive tower speakers made by Klipsch. I think they sound fantastic, but for the money and for the size, I think Polk makes the best speakers that I have personally ever used, and this is what we use in our studio and in all of our offices, so that's what I wanted to make this video about. Now, if you don't have all of the money to buy this system right now, don't worry about it. That's what's so great about this whole thing being modular. I would highly suggest you buy this speaker system with this amplifier. I don't think there's a better deal on an amplifier out there, and I really love the sound out of this little bookshelf speaker. When you get the money or you run across a good subwoofer somewhere else at another time, buy a subwoofer later on and add it if you want to. Maybe you'll get this set up here and you'll decide that you don't even need a subwoofer. I know I personally would much rather have a system like this where I could add to it or change components out rather than some all-in-one box system that so many of these audio companies are trying to sell you. I love quality sound, but with this stereo system, I don't want anything else. I am 100% satisfied with this system. And if you have the money to spend on a system like this, I think you are going to be totally satisfied as well.